Hello, tech community. Welcome to AWS She Builds Tech Skills episode number 21 already. It's that time of the year, isn't it? And I hope you're having fun wherever you are in the world, whether it's Thursday evening, Thursday sometime, or Friday. And it is winter time here in Australia. May, what you been doing?
Is.
Any winter activities?
Well, welcome everyone. Yes, so I based out of Sydney, Australia. It is 10 a.m., a sunny, cold winter. We'll love to hear where everyone is joining from. And where are you joining from today? Because you've been traveling a lot.
Yeah, well, I haven't been traveling of late, so I'm based in sunny Queensland. So it
You
is
can tell us by
summertime.
our clothes. I'm in my jumper. I've got my hot water because it's freezing cold this morning. But Mal, you still in your t-shirt and enjoying the sunshine?
Yeah, definitely. I would say it is Queensland is the Florida of the US. We do have sister cities in Florida, so love to go there one day. I've never
Oh,
been there. I'd
that
love to check
is
it out.
that is amazing. Welcome to Peg from Dallas. Thanks for joining from all the way from Dallas. Yes, welcome everyone to the show. If you haven't seen our She Builds Tech Skills show, we stream live every month on YouTube channel, Twitch channels, and we've been doing it for well, 21 episode now. So really excited. We have different technical topics. We bring in guest speakers who are specialized in a particular area, specialization. Today we have serverless around the batch jobs. So a lot of the technical tips and tricks and also live demo or recording demo. Who doesn't love a demo to actually see what's going on?
Oh yeah, definitely. It's all about
Perfect.
live demos and Tokyo. I've been to Tokyo before. Tokyo's hot today. I wish I was in Tokyo. I don't mind the summers there. It's pretty awesome. The
Yeah,
festivals over there are crazy.
it's a beautiful country, and Tokyo is a beautiful city. I saw actually an Instagram post from my friend. She is based in Shibuya, and she was like, "It is hot today."
Yeah, Shibuya is where I used to hang out quite a lot, especially
Oh,
the
really?
nightlife is, yeah, the nightlife is amazing. You cannot compare that to anywhere in Australia.
Wow.
Yeah, it's awesome. People are friendly. People are keen to
Did
talk to
you
you.
grow up there, or did you just went
No,
there?
not at all. I grew up, grew up. I can't remember much of it. Closer to Osaka, and that's where all the cool
Wow,
street food is, right? But
that's
yeah,
amazing.
I do go back every now and then, and Tokyo is definitely the spot for. Well, I see it as a party town. There's more to
I
it
love
than
it.
partying, but
Yeah. I love it. I've never experienced a nightlife in Tokyo, to be honest. I only went there for holiday, and it's mostly like, you go sightseeing, ski, and um, yeah, the nightlife. Maybe I should have tried it.
never too late to try. There's heaps of cool
Yeah,
bars, and I'm
next.
sure that's the case in Montreal as well. So Emmanuel, uh, I can't pronounce the last, but Boji can't.
First-
Uh, Hello from Montreal. I've never been to Montreal. I've been to Vancouver and Toronto. I'm probably not pronouncing it right either. People over there like to say Toronto. Um, but
Don't you love it? Awesome.
yeah, but would love to go there. I've seen one of my favorite DJs, call it DJs, artists from Canada is Kaytranada. Now, he's hot. I love his
Oh,
music.
wow.
Anyway, just sort of put it out there. Nothing to do with AWS.
No, that's amazing. That's so cool. And I know you had a really busy month, and I saw you did the certification. Tell us a little bit about what certification you did, and I really want to know how you find time to do a certification out of it after work, and also the motivation, I would say.
Yeah, it's really difficult to find time, but you just got to find time after hours and over the weekends. I don't recommend it to, for everyone, especially if you're looking for work-life balance. But yeah, the security AWS security specialty certification, uh, it was quite difficult, even in terms of the specialty certifications. I've done the
Yeah.
data analytics one, and somehow I found the data analytics specialty a little bit more easier than security. I thought it would be the opposite because I've been dealing with like security as
Security is, yeah, everyday conversation, right? Yeah.
yeah. So May,
Oh, that's cool.
you've been doing some security on-ramp workshops with customers. Tell us what that's all about.
Yes, that's right. So, um, I was in the when I was like 2 years ago in a different team. We deal with a lot of or a large number of customers, and we set up this program really to help the customer to get to understand this cloud security. Doesn't have to be AWS, but just in general cloud security, and it just have that the barrier to get into security much easier and understand what is the really foundation of a good security looks like what's good looks like for a customer, and what are the things that they should really focus on before they jump into setting up incident response and automations and stuff that will come. But what is the good foundation looks like for them? So that is all about the workshop that I did with my security folks, and we run across five ANZ cities in person, and that was really good experience. We get to do whiteboarding session with the customer. Customer ask question around like, hey, how I have access key in the in the application. What is the best way to communicate with AWS without actually using the access key? And like this kind of conversations, like I really love it. It's just open up a lot of doors for the customer to build in the cloud in a more secure way. And more importantly, we are educating the customer on the spot and like sharing that knowledge. Like it's a safe space. We talk about what is good, what goods looks like, and what are the things that they should look out for. And we also go through what's the remediation looks like for them. So we do the assessment in the workshop, and then at the end they get the remediations of like, hey, these EC2 instance, you need to go and fix it because there is a security loophole in there. So that kind of conversation really helped the customer to take it to the next step. So yeah, so that was my last month, and yeah, that was pretty good.
Yeah, that's awesome. Whiteboarding sessions are always useful, isn't it? And I want to ask the audience, do you deal with any security issues? Even if you're not in cybersecurity, perhaps maybe
Mm.
you need to look at some of the security vulnerabilities even within your code, even if you're a developer, right? Do you deal with security stuff on a day-to-day basis? Maybe on a not on a day-to-day, but maybe every week or every month, part of
Yeah,
the security
we-
audit.
I would love to hear from the audience because this is conversation that we have like every day. And even if you're not doing much and you're trying to access the AWS from from the command line or from your laptop, and you still have to deal with like, okay, how do I get the access into the AWS account, and how do I have the right permission to access to the right service? So yeah, would love to hear um, anything that you're dealing around security. Pop it in the chat.
So YPK double O's double seven. Yeah, we do with security issues. So I think it's a common theme.
Mm,
Security should be everybody's business, not just one
yeah,
person or just the cybersecurity team. So
for sure. And it's
yeah.
really important to highlight when things goes wrong, what is the steps? Like what do they have to do in the team? So it's about having a run book or like with the team to practice. Something goes wrong, these are the steps that they should do. So just going through with the customers, just really get that experience and advise them what they should do in terms of if something goes wrong in the AWS account.
Yeah. We use AWS Inspector for
Awesome.
vulnerabilities. Yeah, that's awesome. Do you recommend that to your customers, May?
I do. So when my customers starting out, we kind of, um, go through the foundational stuff. So inspector might not be in there, but security hub, AWS security hub is there just to get the visibility of the overall security posture. And security hubs is really handy, and it's not that expensive to actually do that. And as they get through to the status, like, okay, I understand what is the foundation looks like, and then we take it to like, okay, what does patching looks like, and inspectors, and the vulnerability management. That sort of conversation lead into a more mature security posture and having a strong posture in their environment for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, on today's show, we're going to be talking about batch use cases and how do we do that serverlessly. Now, May, you've experienced that with your customers, is that right?
That's right. So I guess like when we talk to a customer, we don't really say, oh, it's a batch job. It is like you're doing the batch processing, but it just come into play where one of my customer who was doing the batch processing job with their the log analytics. So they have like when they have a large events running, and they want to analyze how the event was performing running on AWS, and how is the user experience like. All these data sit in the AWS, is sitting also like third-party systems, so they gather all the logs file, they gather all the information, and then transform using the batch processing to transform using Lambda function, which is the serverless function, and then step functions to actually to enrich the data, to also transform it into more usable, consumable data, and then they have a downstream service to analyze that. So how well the event perform, how is the user experience like. So that sort of things that I have seen in the batch jobs.
Yeah, that's a pretty common use case in media and entertainment and financial services as well as other. I think there was another use case around life sciences, and yeah, a lot of different use cases there, which is pretty cool. Just one more comment from YPK0077, AWS owned document SSM to deal with vulnerabilities in Unix environments. Do you reckon you can answer that one, May, or let's get back to...
There might be documentations, and I will have a time now to go and look at it. So there might be some documentations around that.
All right. With that, let's introduce our guest. So our guest today is Kinnera Vajjala, who is a cloud architect at AWS Professional Services. She's based out of Melbourne, Australia. And let us introduce her. So Kinnera, welcome.
Hey, how are you all?
Good. Are you excited to be on the show?
Yeah.
100% way. And yeah, looking forward to chatting with all of you and teach a bit of serverless and learn a lot from all of you as well. Yep.
All right. So did you want to talk a little bit about this solution and why you decided to showcase this solution before we get into the demo?
Sure, man. So to introduce myself, I'm a cloud application architect based out of Melbourne. I've been with Proso for more than 3 years, and I come from development background. So I've been doing a lot of migration and modernization projects here at Proso. And today I want to discuss about one of the modernization projects that I worked for a customer based in airlines industry. So we had this use case where we had to rewrite the mainframe applications to serverless using technologies like Lambda, step functions. And that we created a blueprint and we used it for various jobs. And I'll be going through that demo wherein I'll explain you how does it look like for a long running job, for a short running job, and what does it work with step functions versus AWS batch. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. So let's go to the demo. Whoops.
Can you start over, please?
Yeah.
Okay. Start from the beginning. Sorry.
Yes.
So what are we looking at, Kinnera?
Let's start with the design page. Yep. If you can start over. Yeah. So This is what I was just explaining, the long running jobs and the short running jobs. So we had this use case where the airline's customer receives a file from a third party, and that gets uploaded to S3 bucket. And once it gets uploaded to S3 bucket, it needs to trigger a step function, and it needs to go and save it into the database. And there were scenarios where the file size was too much, and then we had to use Elastic Container Service, which is a container. And then there were use cases where the files were very short, and it could be like the batch job takes only 1 to 2 minutes. In that case, we went with Lambda. So the way it works is when a file gets uploaded to S3 bucket, it uses the event bridge and pushes the file input to step functions. Step functions is a AWS service that orchestrates various serverless services like Lambda, ECS, or DynamoDB, API Gateway, Code Build. A step function does natively integrate with various services. And in this use case, we have been using only Elastic Container Service and Lambda. So first case where we create an Elastic ECS cluster, and then we have a task definition. And the second case, we have a simple orchestration of Lambdas. So that's about the design on a high level. Yeah. Can you continue the video, please, May? Yeah. Yeah. So it's basically what I just explained you. When a file gets uploaded to S3 bucket, it goes to step functions and it triggers the Elastic Container Service. And for short running jobs, it triggers the Lambda.
So here you split it into long running to be ECS and then short running to be Lambda.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So I've used SAM template for this short and sweet demo. So SAM template is a wrapper on CloudFormation. If you have used CloudFormation, we use it for any services. And SAM, the serverless templates, is used specifically for serverless services. It's just a wrapper, and it sort of consolidates the prototype code. You don't need to mention all the required things. So if you have a look at this place where I have mentioned the state machine. So instead of instead of writing all the extra code, state machine will make sure that it creates a step function or Lambda. And the same is applicable for, all the other serverless services as well. Now, I'm just going to explain you how that step function definition looks like. So for the first long running jobs, you see that the first step is to invoke the ECS task. This invoke ECS task, where you pass the cluster ID and the task definition. And then depending on if the task gets successfully completed, it triggers the review results. Or you do see a results path there. So, we could play with the results path and see what's the status of the job and what is the output as well. That's about a simple use case. Imagine you wanted to run multiple tasks in parallel. Say you have a series of items and you want to spin up multiple ECS tasks in parallel. That's when it goes to the next step. So if you see this definition here, so you see this task is of type map, and we do have iterator. So this map will have the list of items, and for each and every item, it will start creating a task for itself, and it can do multiple things in parallel. Step function does a lot of other magics as well. Cautious of time, I don't want to go into details, but I just wanted to explain this use case where it's single task versus multiple tasks in parallel. Let us know if you have any questions. Happy to pause the demo and answer the questions as well.
So you mentioned CloudFormation. So when should you use CloudFormation versus a SAM template? And what is CloudFormation in layman's terms for those that aren't familiar?
Sure. So CloudFormation is an AWS service that's used to create templates and deploy the infrastructure to AWS services. And this is used for automation. You can actually go to AWS console and create an EC2 instance manually. But how do you track it? Who is doing what? What is the security? And how do you want to make it configurable across multiple environments? That's when CloudFormation comes into picture. You can create one CloudFormation template and parameterize all the values, and you could use the same template for multiple environments. So scalability, configuration, automation, everything is achieved using CloudFormation.
Oh, I see. And what about SAM? And this is a question out to the audience as well. Have you used CloudFormation or SAM, or are you using other third-party providers like HashiCorp, Terraform, or other infrastructure as code tools? And I guess this is also a question to Kinnera. Have you seen customers use CloudFormation and Terraform, or a mixture of all the above?
Yes. Combination of CloudFormation and SAM templates, yes. You will be able to embed the SAM templates into CloudFormation, and we have done that for customers. In terms of Terraform, that's really useful when you have multi-cloud strategy, or if you want to have more, you have more HashiCorp related stack like Terraform, Vault, Console. All these are the services that comes from that provider. So if you have Vault instead of a secrets manager, in that case, you could use Terraform, and that natively integrates with Vault for storing the variables or secrets as well. Yeah.
So they are customer using Terraform.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that it's a different tools that you can use. I have been in an organization. One team used Terraform, one team used CDK/CloudFormation. So whatever their language the team is familiar with, and it's the beauty of the technology, right? They can just build on top of it. Yeah.
Yep. Great. Yep.
Cool. So let's continue play the video, and I want to say if you have any questions, feel free to pop it in the chat.
Yeah. So now, cautious of time, I had already deployed it, but let's look at SAM. So now you should be able to do a SAM build and SAM deploy from your local, and SAM deploy should say no changes because I've already deployed it. So let's do a SAM deploy, and it internally uses CloudFormation, and you see that it's trying to create a change set here, and it comes back and says no changes. That's because I've already deployed it. Next, we'll go to the AWS console and see the things in action. So I've created two S3 buckets here, one for batch job 1 and one for batch job 2. Batch job artifacts is for the long running jobs, and batch job 2 is for the short running jobs. So let's start with the long running jobs. So the way S3 bucket natively integrates with step function is using Event Bridge. And for that to happen, you need to enable the Event Bridge notifications. It's both the ways. So you enable it from S3 bucket, and then you go and create a rule in Event Bridge, which I'll show you in 1 minute. So now, if you see, I have created a rule here, and this rule says, okay, if there is an object that gets uploaded to this bucket with this name, go and trigger this service. That could be step function or anything else. Again, Event Bridge is serverless, and it has a lot of native integration with many other AWS services. And in this case, you see that the target is step function. So when a file gets uploaded to that S3 bucket, it goes and triggers this step function. Let's look at the definition of the step function, and you see that the invoke ECS task, which is what I have shown you in the IDE as well. It's basically the same definition here on the console, and it has picked up the ECS cluster and the task definition. And you see that, it will start the ECS task, and depending on the review results, it will either fail the job or, call the job as successful. Now let's upload a file and see how it works. Yeah. So now we have uploaded a file called input file 1, and Event Bridge would have pushed it to step function, and it would have ideally triggered an execution. Let's look at the execution tab, and you see that an execution has already started. It's in running state there, and let's look at the various configurations that are there for the step function. And if you look at the invoke ECS task, you should be able to see the name of the bucket there and the metadata of the file that was uploaded to S3 bucket. That's the input job 1. That's what you see there. So it has passed the metadata, and now the ECS task knows that there was a file that was uploaded, and it picks it up from there and does the required business logics. And in the event section, you should be able to see the list of tasks that have happened. And if it has failed, what is the input and output for each task and what's being passed to the next task. That's what you see in the event section. And in terms of various states of the step function, the blue color says the step function is still in progress. And if it's all successful, it's all green, projects are green, step function is green, it's all green for successful. And step function natively catches the errors as well. That's when it goes to the caught error. And when there is an issue, it gracefully shuts down the function, and you should be able to send an email saying the job has failed with the error message as well.
Yeah, that's interesting because I was just going to ask if you're running a lot of jobs, like especially like parallel, and how do you know if something's failed, and what is the best practices around notifying the relevant team or people that the job has failed? Is it just logging, or do you recommend having a alerts or SNS notification?
Yes. So I would advise SNS notifications or even SES. You can create an event
Yeah.
with event this, and then with SES, you should be able to send an email to the platform team, for example, platform team. And that's what we have been doing for some other bank recently. We are setting up a sandbox solution for them. And whenever the job fails, we do have the DL of the platform support team, and we send an email with the failure message. With the template, we just get the error message from the step function and pass it to that event and embed it into the email template. That way, they know that, okay, this was the execution entity that has failed, and this was the error. Yeah.
I see. One more question around the long-running jobs versus the short-running or short-lived jobs, right? I know you mentioned ECS for the long-running jobs and using Lambdas for the short-lived jobs. How do you decide? Why is that so? Can you explain to us what's the difference between running containers versus Lambda functions, and why did you choose that design?
Yeah. AWS Lambda is a serverless service, but the execution time is restricted to 15 minutes. So when we are designing an application, we make sure that that solution is valid for at least next 10 years. Imagine a job takes 10 minutes or 12 minutes, and you use a Lambda, and the data size grows over 2 years or 3 years, which means the execution time increases, which means that your Lambda is going to time out. In that case, we'll make sure that we go with ECS Fargate the task or even AWS batch. Or imagine it's a short running job like 2 minutes, 3 minutes. In that case, you don't really need to take care of the container definition. The difference between the ECS task and Lambda as such is Lambda, you don't need to take care of what does the container look like. It takes care of the compute. You need to say, okay, this is my business logic. This is the memory I want. Now, AWS, you take care of it. That's the difference between a Lambda and a container task. For container task, you need to say the CPU memory, and you need to spin up your own Docker image, Docker or any other image provider as such. Hope that answers your question, Maya.
Yeah, definitely answers a lot of questions, and I think it's useful to know that, especially if you're studying for certifications, right? Like Solutions Architect Associate and even the Pro Certs. So definitely keep that in mind around the differences, because microservices, can be deployed in different ways. So since you mentioned microservices architecture, I thought, and event-driven architecture, this is an important core topic.
Yep.
Right. Let's continue with your demo.
Cool. Yeah. Now, let me quickly show you what the ECS cluster looks like and the definition of the task looks like. So let's search for the Elastic Container Service. Yeah. So you see that I've created a cluster called cluster for batch jobs, and you'll be able to see the task that is in pending status or running status at whatever stage. Once it's provisioned, it goes to running, and at this stage, it's being still provisioned. And that's the reason you see this. So this is how we have connected AWS S3, step function, and the Elastic Container Service. I hope it makes sense for all of you. Yeah. And now let's get back and look at the next batch job, wherein we are going to integrate S3 bucket, step function, and Lambda. That's for this one. I had actually uploaded it for my testing before I do the demo. So let's delete this. And let's upload the same file again to see that in action. Cool. We have uploaded this file now. Now let's look at the event bridge rule that we have created for this one. So again, it's a very similar format. For if an object gets created in this specific S3 bucket, you could actually include the prefix as well. Say, okay, if the input file name is file1, do this. In that case, it will ignore all the other files that are uploaded to that S3 bucket and just looks at that keyword. Yeah. So it looks at the S3 object name, bucket name. You can do a lot of filtering using the event bridge rule. And now you see the target that, I've mapped it to a step function again. Let's get to that step function now. It's just a series of lambdas that I've done for this one. And if see that it has already triggered the step function, it's already successful. And now you see a series of steps here. So when I get an input file, I look at the entry and I see if it's already there in database. And with step functions, there is the concept of choice as well. So that's where you see this condition here. Okay, I look at the status. If it exists, do this. If it doesn't exist, do this. You could have multiple choices there as well. And depending on the conditions, you should be able to call the next task. And finally, it will call the report result, which I have integrated with SNS. This is where you are asked this question already. So if the job fails, you can use this report result functionality to create an SNS topic or an SES event. Yep.
I see. That's cool.
Yep. And now that step function has already executed successfully, let's look at the execution as such. It is all green, beautiful. So the reason it's all green is because it's all successful. Otherwise, it turns red, grumpy, yeah? So this is all green because it's all successful. And now if you come down, you should be able to see the series of events. Like what was the task? Task entered, task executed, and task exited with successful state. And if you click on each and everything, you should be able to see what the input and the output format is. And it again natively integrates with CloudWatch. So for each and every task, you should be able to see the CloudWatch logs. That's about the second job as well. So pretty much the end of the demo. Yeah. Yep.
So there is a question. Thank you very much for that demo, Kinnera. There is a question around from YPK0077. Can we run this across AWS accounts?
Yes. Step functions, you will be able to run it across my cross account as well, definitely. And you need to provision the right permissions. I would say role-based policies, and even for S3 bucket, if you have to upload it from some other bucket, some other account also, you create a user and then you, in the S3 bucket policy, you give the right permissions so that the cross account can access the S3 bucket. Yes.
Yeah.
Cross AWS accounts is definitely possible. Yeah.
So let's say you have S3 sitting in account A and then step function in the account B. And then Lambda in the account B or something along the line, and then you give a cross-account permission, and then be able to access the or consume the S3 data.
S3 you will be definitely able to upload S3 files to S3 cross account. In terms of integration with step function, I haven't done that as such, but I would say why not? Why not? Definitely, it's the matter of just assuming the right roles, and you should be able to do that. I haven't done that, but it definitely, yes, I guess, yeah.
Yeah, and that's the assume rows, right? So you allow account A to be able to access to the account B through the assume rows.
Exactly. It's even in the step function you have an ECS task. Inside an ECS task, you should be able to do an STS assume role to some other account. As long as the right permissions are given, you should be able to assume. Yep.
Yeah, awesome. Step functions is that a regional service? So I guess we can, if we're going cross account but then cross regions, then obviously there's a latency aspect to it, right? So that's something that I guess unless it's really required, you'd want to avoid in terms of performance aspects, right? Is that right, Kinnera?
Yes, yes, I agree with you. And cross region is more, I would say, for backups. Say,
Mm,
imagine you have a high availability application and you are looking at disaster recovery.
Mm,
That's when we look at cross region applications, or you have an application that needs to be global. In that case, we look at cross region. Again, we use CloudFront and other technologies to make sure that the performance is balanced there.
yeah, that totally makes sense. A lot of my customers are looking at cross region, especially now in Australia. We've got the Melbourne region, which is our second region.
Yeah, yep,
Pretty
yep.
awesome. Yeah. On that note, I just wanted to give a shout out to Mayuk. Hello, and
Go
thanks for
right.
supporting us. And happy birthday.
Ah,
wow.
happy.
Happy birthday. I
All right.
think yes, I think we still got a bit of time. Let's do a little bit of Q&A around your career. We haven't really talked about it. We dive right into the step functions and then the demo.
Yeah,
But from the audience, if you still have any questions around the from the demo and then the badge jobs, feel free to pop it in here. But I'm gonna shift a little bit into Kinnera, like your career. You have been in the industry for quite a long time and you have a lot of experience, and I want to know, how do you get into this career and then this job, and what was your experience like?
sure. So I started as a Java developer and then I picked up the front end skills as well. And after we migrated to Australia, I I was fortunate to work with some customers where they were using a lot of AWS as well. I had used AWS EC2 and S3 as part of my application development. And then while I was working for one of the big four banks, I had an opportunity to migrate or even modernize one application and push to cloud. That's when I wrote my first cloud formation template, first user data, and then I set up the end-to-end pipelines and
That's
deployed it to
amazing.
deployed to AWS. I really loved it, and that's when I felt like maybe not just development, maybe a bit of DevOps and cloud. And then I did the AWS Solution Architect Associate certification first. And my advice for the people who have joined here, if you're really keen to learn cloud, start with cloud practitioner first and then do the solution architect associate. That will give you an overview of all the services. And after that, I did work on one of the retail customers wherein I implemented a lot of event driven architectures, nice microservice patterns using SQS, SNS, and and then I got a call from AWS Proso for a cloud application developer role. I was like, nah, not me, not into AWS. But all the interview was based on my cloud application development knowledge and super supportive team as well. I got into
That's
AWS and
awesome.
I've been thoroughly enjoying the last 3 years. Yep.
Oh, that's amazing. Like from the Java developer, and you weren't doing cloud or any sort of like cloud technology when you were doing the Java development, were you?
Initially, not in the first 7, 8 years, but after
Yeah.
that, I started using the AWS services like S3
What
bucket.
was what was your first AWS service that you used? Was it S3 and
Yes,
EC2?
3. Yes, S3 and EC2. Yep. 7 years ago, 7, 8 years ago. Yep.
Yeah.
S3 and EC2. Yep.
That's amazing. Like you like sometimes you shift around, being a backend developer, like Java developer, front end, and then you go sideways like maybe cloud and DevOps, and
Yeah.
now it's all coming together.
Yeah, and the knowledge about application helps in modernizing the applications. Now, what
Yeah.
we see two different use cases in Proso, right? One is migration of applications to cloud, modernization of applications to cloud, and that's where my Java expertise or even front end expertise is super helpful. I
Yeah.
can look at the application landscape and do the right design in terms of migration, modernization as well.
No, that's really amazing. And in the ProServe, like professional service team, you involved in the multiple different projects. And could you tell a little bit about, what sort of projects that you worked on? And you're in the application modernization and migration, but what does it looks like in your day to day?
Sure, man. I had the opportunity to work on various large-scale migration projects with big four banks, or even one of the customers in the airline industry, where they wanted to exit their data center by 2025. So we had a use case where we had to rewrite mainframe ETL jobs to serverless. And that's exactly what I did the demo for. And then migrations in terms of portfolio analysis. Say there are 100 applications on-prem and the customer isn't sure what to pick up. That's where we have our expertise to understand the application complexity and do a prioritization in terms we look at various columns and prioritize the applications to say, okay, these are the first 5 applications that are good to go to cloud, and probably start educating the customer as well. And we enable the customer as we do the migration. That's called the portfolio analysis application assessment. I've been doing it for one of the big four banks. And one of the other interesting projects that I've done last year was application modernization for real estate company. That's a company based out of Brisbane. And I did the pre-sales as well. It was a Java monolithic application built over 20 years. It
Oh,
was
wow.
on-prem. There were lots of production issues, and it was in SVN, not even Git. It was in SVN as well. And when we reached out to them, whether like we need your help to migrate the source code, modernize it to some extent, and push it to cloud. So I did the pre-sales. We earned the trust of the customer, and I was fortunate to do the delivery as well. So we modernized the Java application and we pushed it to cloud, and that is up and running on cloud, and high performing, no production issues at all. Customers happy, their customers are happy, and our customers are happy. Yep.
No, that's awesome. Wow. Yeah, a lot of these experience, bring it back to like what you have done in the past and then your experience coming in the picture and actually go through the journey together with the customer. So, and then training the customer and educating them along the journey. So I think that's really cool.
Yep.
I've got a question from the audience, YPK0077. They've been active today. So interesting. How do you handle application dependencies? And to go into further details, one application on cloud and other on-prem. So looking at a hybrid type of model. How does that work in hybrid?
Yes, it definitely works. So there were occasions where even in one application, we had to push the application servers to cloud while the database had to be on-prem for various reasons. And it's seamless as long as you have a direct connection or a site-to-site VPN, and as long as you have the plumbing done, it's seamless. And if you think of the latency also, I would say it's less than 20 milliseconds. And for you to connect, you need the direct connection, and the VPC for the route table, it should have the right association so that it can talk to on-prem.
Awesome. Yeah. So that definitely answers it. I know a lot of customers that I deal with have a hybrid type of setup, and they were looking at the same Java monolithic application and looking at Lambda Snap Start. Is that something that you've recommended to customers or are already using?
I got excited last year. The moment I see Java, I get excited. So I did a bit of read through of the Lambda Snapshot, and for all of you to explain what Lambda Snapshot stuff. So one of the issues with the Lambdas, specifically when you write it in Java with Spring Boot framework, I'm sure if some of you understand Java and Spring Boot framework, was the time it takes to bootstrap. So if you have to spin up a Lambda, it takes some time to bootstrap and start and run the application. And the Lambda start helps you with that. It does this caching sort of thing. So first time it takes some time, but second time when you try to run that Lambda, it has already have a caching thing. So it knows where to pick it up from. And that's the reason the start time is reduced. So we are addressing the cold start issues, Mike. And in terms of advising it to customers, I would still prefer containers for critical applications, long-running applications, which are critical APIs as well, right? Containers would be my preference. But if you have APIs that you need to, that you need to use them, but not like you need to use them 24/7. In that case, I would prefer Lambda with API gateway. So you save some cost. End of the day, why do we go with serverless? It's costing and scaling, right? So these are the two important factors which we look into when we design and advise here.
Yeah, that's awesome. There is a Lambda Snap Start workshop as well, so I'll try to post it in the chat. It's very useful to dive deep into cold starts, right?
Yep.
Now, moving on to the actual question around your demo. So we talked about in the intro why you made this. And what are the next steps for this particular project that you created this demo for, I guess?
Uh, what are the next steps you will?
Yes.
Okay, this specific demo which I did was for one of the customers that I worked 1 year ago. But typically, what I see format with application modernization or even moving to serverless is looking at data analytics. So, as part of this modernization, we were pushing data from Teradata on-prem to Teradata cloud. And we were looking at setting up a data lake solution using this archive files to S3 bucket. So using AWS Athena and AWS Glue, where it will analyze the files and pick up the snapshot for every day, and it pushes it to data lake. So application modernization, and second thing is data modernization. That's how I say that, my yeah.
I see. That's awesome. I'll hand over to May if she's got several other questions, including the culture and career part, which we totally missed.
I know we talk a little bit about the tech backgrounds and the current job, and we shifted into technology, but that's okay. But what we were talking about is, Kinnera, you've done a lot of projects, and currently, what's your current role involve modernizations and migrations? What is the next your passions or next interest that you're looking at it?
Sure. I think data analytics it will be my next area of interest, or even machine learning, because
Oh
I
yeah.
see, yeah, I see that customers look at application modernization first, and the next step is data modernization, data analytics, setting up data lake,
Mm.
or even creating those visualization dashboards. So I think that will be my next step.
Yeah, because like once they have done migration or modernizations, they are in this technology, so they can start exploring new things,
More.
start exploring, analyzing these data and be more intelligent with the decision making process with these data. So absolutely, I think that's really cool. I haven't done much of the machine learning, and I'm trying to build a demo for my customer. So I'm starting it from scratch and getting my hands dirty with SageMaker and.
Yeah. Yep.
So, no, that's really cool. Thank you for sharing that. One last question from me, and you've been with AWS for about nearly 3 years, I would say. Is that
Yeah.
yeah?
Almost three. Yep.
Almost 3 years, and congratulations. What's a really one project or one thing that you're really proud of during your 3 years?
Yep. So I had an opportunity to design, implement, and even probably push it to non-prod and prod. These are two
Mm-hmm.
critical one applications for the airlines customer, and these applications were really important during the time of that modernization. That was because during COVID times, these applications and the data that this application was processing was saved into a database, and all the COVID related information was saved into this database. And this was sent to customer, government, and for various other government related services. And when we were like, we did the stream and we were about to give a handover, that's when the airlines program lead came to our handoff session and said, do you know what you have done? You have actually helped the government as well. This application which you have modernized is being used in so many places. And
Wow.
the best part is I went back to the same customer last year sometime, and I got a ping from the BAU team that, hey Kinnera, all the applications have been running successfully for the last 2 years without any issue, not even a single issue. So yeah,
Wow.
quite happy about that, and even proud.
That's
Yeah.
amazing, and well done to you and the team. That's really cool. Like you have made a huge impact on,
Fact.
things that's happening that's impacting everyday life. So that's really cool.
Thank you. Is it bad?
So we have got a questions lost in the cloud. I guess this is more of a certification question. Is it a bad idea to aim for professional certification directly, or should they do cover a few of the some exams around associate essay or developers? What do you reckon, Kinnera?
I would advise you to start with associate. I do have 5 certifications. I did the Solution Architect Associate, Developer Associate, SysOps, and then Security, and then Solution Architect Professional. And out of all this, my humble opinion, professional exam, I mean,
It's the
it's not
next
tough.
level.
It's not tough, but the questions are so long, and you need to just think and pick up the right answer.
Yeah.
And then I would say my advice will start with associate first, start with solution architect associate. And for to go to professional exam, you need at least 2 to 3 years of experience and time management. Time management is super critical for
Yeah.
professional exams. For all other exams, trust me, I had 15 minutes, I reviewed, and I was like, nah, it's all good. Professional exam, I had 19 seconds. 19 seconds. I still do remember that day. I'm like, I need to submit. I need to submit. And then, anyway, I managed to pass the exam. That's a different story. But my suggestion will be to go with associate first.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I totally
And Mike?
agree with that.
Yeah.
Same here. I ran out of time, whereas other exams I had plenty of time.
Plenty
And
of
if you're
time.
brand new to AWS, start with even cloud practitioner.
Cloud practitioner, yep.
Yeah, that's a confidence booster, right? So start at the very, I guess, the bottom level, and then work your way up. And I think what happens is, like, as you get the cloud prac and all the associate level certs, you get all the information that you need to build up for your pro cert.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely in terms of getting that knowledge, it
Getting
all
that
adds up. I reckon that's
100,
And also
100%. Yep.
and also the question style, like you kind of understand what's the question looks like and how do you answer this kind of, sometimes you get like Kinnera said, like super long question. It takes me a while. This is my second language, like English is my second. It takes me a while to really translate that. Am I understanding this, or because it's a bit hairy, the question itself.
Yeah.
But in the associate, it is a little bit shorter, and then you can kind of understand what the scenario is, and definitely going through the associate and get into professional. But if you're confident, why not? If you're confident, you've been using it for a while. Yeah,
Yep. Yep. Yeah. Just be cautious of time. That's my only tip.
that's yeah.
Another question from Nagar Rampling. What do you mean by modernization?
Yeah. You have a application on-prem, and when you are moving it to cloud, there are various ways in which we can move it to cloud. You can just do a lift and shift, in which case you are not actually making any changes to the application. It is still that legacy nature of application, but you are saving money and cost in terms of the on-prem service as such. So you move it to cloud, and in terms of scalability, yes, even if you do a lift and shift, you definitely have the scalability that cloud provides. Modernization is where you rewrite your application to make it more scalable, available, and even I would say it's more performing. So imagine you have a Java monolithic application, and if you have to make a change, it takes you 2 to 3 weeks to push a small change to production. But if you decompose it into microservices using containers or serverless, and if you have to change one API, I would bet you can do it in 2 days. 2 weeks versus 2 days, and that's the better time to market. It's faster time to market, or saving time and money, and then many other things which comes with modernization. And in terms of how do you do modernization, you can push it to containers, which we call as replatform, or you can do a refactor and re-architect to serverless as well. It depends on the cloud journey of the customers. Thank you, Annapurna. Depending on the cloud journey of customers, if we find that the customer is fairly new and they can't manage their on-prem service, we would advise them serverless, because they can just take care of their business logics, and we take care of the the infrastructure for them. Or if it's like a complex microservices, where say a big financial institution, in that case we could go with ECS clusters or EKS clusters depending on the use case.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of my customers use ECS and EKS clusters. And another question from Noah. I have just started as a cloud developer. Should my next cert be Solutions Architect Associate or Developer Associate? What questions should I ask myself to find my answer to this?
Great question, Uh, that's a good question actually, because if you solution architect associate is more for when you want to understand how do you design for an application modernization or migration. That's what is covered in solution architect. While developer associate is more into how do you implement it. For example, the demo I did, it's a it suits more for developer associate, wherein how do you actually develop these services and how do those integrations look like. And for solution architect, it will be more on the well architected framework. So AWS follows the standard well architected framework: reliability, availability, cost efficiency, sustainability, security. Security is job zero. Sorry, that's something which I should have told first. So in terms of solution architect associate or even designing application, you need to have a review of all this well architected pillar. That's for the solution architect associate, and developer is more for actual development. I hope it makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. May, what do you think of this question?
I think Kinnera answered really well. And Solutions Architect Associate, you get the general overview of all the
All
200 plus services. Like, how do you design that in like generally understanding how you can integrate with one service to another? And then the developer is going to focus on how does the lambda gonna scale, and was that the memory and a CPU, or how do you this application access to EC2 instances, what IAM roles or SSK do you use, that kind of like questions, very focused on day-to-day developers interactions on AWS services versus a service to service integrations, and how do you design it in the well architected manner in the associate exam.
Yeah, you definitely covered it. All right. Looks like there's no more questions. I think it is time to wrap up. Do you have any final comments, Kinnera, before we wrap up?
uh, thank you for this opportunity, and it was great chatting with all of you. Feel free to reach out to us, connect with us on LinkedIn, shout out, or if you need any help, feel free to reach out to us. And please do subscribe to the She Builds group. It's a great initiative. Great job, Maya and May. Great job. So feel free to subscribe to that and reach out to us. Yep.
Yeah,
Thank
definitely.
you.
And May has posted the LinkedIn group there. And we also have a podcast as well. So you can listen to us on the go, available on Spotify and all your major podcast platforms like Apple as well. May, do you want to close this up?
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you to all the viewers, and thank you, Kinnera, for being a presenter on the show. And I will hope to see you again. And we will come back same time next month.
Thank you.